Whose country are we in? Mine.
Oh, that's well done. That's very, very well done. Hello folks, welcome back to the Napoleonic Wars channel. We've got another one. If you enjoyed the first trailer for Ridley Scott's hotly anticipated film, Napoleon, then I have good news for you. Another one has dropped. We're a little over a month out from the release of this hugely anticipated blockbuster starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon and Vanessa Kirby as Josephine. As we did last time, we're going to take a little look, we're going to break it all down, and we're going to talk about what it all means in terms of what this film is going to show us about the Emperor's life. Take a look.
General,
We are discovered. Good. Wait!
Nice! It's a trap! Retreat!
I'm not built like other men.
Generals gathered in their masses. Move along now!
Those in power only see me as a brute, unfit for higher office.
Just like witches at black masses.
But I follow in the footsteps of Alexander the Great and Caesar.
Evil minds that plot destruction.
If you look down, you'll see a surprise. Once you see it, you will always want it.
Sorcerer of death construction.
I must warn you, I will not lead a second in command. I will win by fire.
Good.
I am destined for greatness. I found the crown of France in the gutter and placed it atop my own head.
Ashes where the bodies burning.
You want to be great.
No.
But you are nothing without me. Say it.
I believe I speak for all of us. We will all sleep again without this vermin.
Whose country are we in? Mine.
Oh, that's well done. That's very, very well done. Well, there's a lot for us to deconstruct there, isn't there? So, first up, initial reactions. It looks great. It looks so darn good. And there are loads of problems. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of those problems and what works and what doesn't work and what's right and what isn't. But I just want to make the point right from the start. It's not going to be historically accurate. We know that. It's a film. It is Hollywood. And that means it is not meant to be a documentary. You couldn't tell Napoleon's life properly in 2 hours, even if you tried. So I know a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, but this is wrong and that's wrong. Yes, it is. Of course it is. But approach this like you approach The Duelists or Gladiator or even Blade Runner, folks, because this is a film based around Napoleon's life. It's going to give you a bit of his story. It's not going to give you the entire thing. I know a lot of people have issues with the music choice for the trailer as well, which I kind of get, but the way that they've cut it is smart, so it works. I don't have a big issue with that. I think when you look at what they've done in some of the other scenes in terms of using period appropriate music, so I did a video on the coronation scene that came out the other day. Go back through the back catalogue and have a look at that. That seems to be pretty good in terms of the music that they've chosen. They didn't actually use the correct music for the coronation scene, but I think there's a reason behind that I explain. So I think Ridley Scott can be trusted to pick the right kind of music. I mean, this is the guy who got Hans Zimmer to write the music for Gladiator. You know, the guy knows what he's doing. So I'm not hugely bothered about that. It works within the context of this. Let's take another look and we'll break it down blow by blow. See, I like this from the start, and I know a lot of people looked at the earlier publicity and they were like, well, Napoleon was this and he was that. You know, this whole he came from nothing and he conquered everything, and well, no, he didn't, and no, he didn't actually. Coming from minor aristocracy and all the rest of it, and no, he didn't conquer everything. He conquered a good chunk of Europe. But when you look through the different words that flash up, you've got all sorts in there. You've got tyrant, you've got genius, you've got the full spectrum. And I think that's good. That's encouraging. That's healthy. This is that kind of push towards a warts and all, you know, an honest Napoleon, not a kind of let's call him a demon and a villain and let's all hate him, and not a this guy was, you know, God personified. He's what you've got coming through here is this sense of guy with flaws, and I like that. I have got issues with the delivery, but we'll get to that in a minute.
General, we are discovered.
Good.
And then, of course, they do cut to us. Napoleon in control. We talked about this in the last one, folks. A lot of what they're showing here is absolute rubbish. Yes, there was kind of a trap in that Napoleon was throwing a dummy in. He was trying to get, and succeeded in getting, the Russians and the Austrians to come down from their position on the Pratzen Heights, attacking where he appeared to be weak, propped it up with Davout's Third Corps at the last minute, and then sends in Soult and Fourth Corps and absolutely hammers the Russian and Austrian position. But that's not what they're kind of... Well, it sort of is what they're trying to show, you know, kind of Napoleon telling his men to wait so that he can then spring the trap. But this whole trap that they're showing is built around this idea of the lakes that weren't actually lakes, they were ponds, and then Napoleon ordered that they were drained, and they found literally like 2 bodies in there. Loads of horses, but not humans. So it's all kind of built around that part of the Austerlitz story, which is myth that Napoleon himself created because he suggested that thousands of people had drowned as a result of the smashing of the ice. So they're playing into Napoleonic legend here, and this is why a lot of people are kind of saying, well, look, maybe this is kind of sort of Napoleon in a dream state. Maybe this is Napoleon looking back on his life. Maybe this is Napoleon through Napoleon's eyes. And I can see bits of that. It would be a nice little plot device. It would make more sense if it's true. But I'm just a little bit hesitant at assuming that that's how Ridley's going to have gone about this.
Guys! It's a trap! Retreat!
See, that's from a cinematography point of view, that looks great. And I think, and this is why I said at the start, look, you've got to approach this like you do the duelists, where it looks great. There's a nice story to be told in the midst of it. Yeah, there will be flaws. There will be plot flaws in this because you can't tell such a complicated story in such a short space of time. It's certainly not in film. Even if you're just trying to kind of run through the story, you would struggle to do it in that amount of time. So I think go beyond the history. And it's tough for me to say that. I'm a historian. This is what I do. Literally, this period is my day job. It's what I do with my life. But you've got to enjoy the spectacle. And I think in focusing too much on the history, which we know is going to be wrong in a lot of places anyway. Look, Joaquin Phoenix even made this point in an interview for Empire. If you want the history of the period, go pick up a book. Don't watch the film. This is not the point of the film. The point of the film is for you to spend a couple of hours zoning out, immersing yourself in the sort of general feel of the Napoleonic era. And in terms of that, it looks fantastic.
I'm not built like other men.
Great quote. The arrogance there, but also this sort of sense of Napoleon's own sense of destiny, which was a part of his character. I think they've gone big on that throughout the film. I think the arrogance is going to be kind of exploited a lot and played up perhaps a little bit more. Napoleon was very arrogant, don't get me wrong. So was Wellington. You know, this isn't just a Napoleon thing. It's not just a Brit going, oh, look, Napoleon was arrogant. Of course he was arrogant. Look at what he achieved in his life. But therein lies the point. This film is about the story of a guy who goes on to achieve some of the most remarkable things that anybody did in their lifetime. It is going to take you through the key parts of that story. And from a visual spectacle, it's going to do an amazing job of it.
Generals gathered in their masses. Move along now.
I'm just loving the sort of stereotypical working class English accent that's going in there. Move along now. You know, that sort of South London twang to it. So what you've got here is Napoleon in disguise taking a look at the defenses of Toulon. There were redoubts that he identified a particular weak spot, a particular redoubt, which if the French could seize, they could then deploy guns onto the heights overlooking Toulon. And from there, they could then fire on the English fleet. They could dominate Toulon. And so they would force the British basically to withdraw their fleet out into the outer harbour, out towards the bay. What they're kind of showing you here it's like a majorly simplified version of that. It's sort of Napoleon scouting around. He finds a weak point in the defences, and then, hey, he takes them, and then they turn the guns on the British fleet, and the British fleet sort of burns. And it's all sort of a little bit sort of D-Day in reverse. It's fabrication, it's fanciful, but like I said, people, it's not a documentary. You've just got to accept that this is going to be a film very loosely based around the events of Napoleon's life. What I'm hoping you're going to do if you're watching this is that you're going to go and listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos. There are some great providers out there. So Age of Napoleon by Everett Rummage is a great podcast. There's also a podcast by a bloke called Zack White called the Napoleonic Wars Pod. You probably don't want to bother with that one. And if you're looking for YouTube channels, then you could start with Epic History TV, which is fantastic. Toby does a great job over there. And you've also got History Hit by Dan Snow. So if you want the history, go to people who do the history. Different story when it comes to Ridley Scott.
Those in power only see me as a brute.
See, I'm curious about the little kind of agenda that they're pushing here, this kind of idea of Napoleon feeling persecuted. You know, nobody appreciates my genius. They see me as too coarse, too uncivilized. And I think perhaps they're trying to play that, you know, Napoleon uncivilized, which works to a point. This is where the Josephine element of the story really does work, because as Rachel Stark has said on this show a few times, it's Josephine that makes Napoleon palatable to society. And I think Vanessa Kirby's playing of Josephine is going to really strike a chord with the historians, but also with the audience.
Unfit for higher office.
It's going to be brutal, this film. I don't know what they're certifying it as, but it is going to be brutal. Look at the fight scenes. They're not they're not sort of gentle. They're pretty vicious.
Witches at Black Masses.
But I follow in the footsteps of Alexander the Great
So
and
that's the Great
Caesar.
Evil
Pyramid.
minds that
Quite
plot
obviously.
destruction.
This is again fabrication. Khufu's pyramid, one of the three great pyramids at Giza, has been empty for as long as people have realistically sort of been searching inside Khufu's pyramid. So I think this is absolute. Well, no, I can say this is absolute rubbish. Doesn't mean that the French didn't find mummies when they were out in Egypt doing all kinds of explorations. Napoleon takes this whole Egyptian society out there. It's like it's an organization that is meant to learn as much as they can about Egypt and really kind of delve into Egyptology. And a lot of what we know from Egyptology has its birth during this expedition that he leads out to Egypt. But in terms of how they're cutting this to suggest that they found the mummy inside the Great Pyramid, no.
If you look down, you'll see a surprise. Once you see it, you will always want it.
Sorcerer of death construction.
And of course he looks. See, there they are playing into the whole "not tonight, Josephine," that kind of sexualized image, Josephine the nymphomaniac. I mean, put it this way, Napoleon is in one of what is supposedly one of his most romantic love letters, allegedly, and I don't actually believe it's genuine, but it is claimed that Napoleon wrote to Josephine, "Don't wash, I am coming," which is a little bit by our modern standards of hygiene, but it's a different era, different standards. So Napoleon's not exactly, shy, shall we say, when it comes to all of that. See, this is where the people have been criticizing the age difference, and it's the first time that I've seen it, and I would actually agree with the fact that the age disparity doesn't quite work. Napoleon, because the point that people try to make is that Napoleon is sort of sexually inexperienced and Josephine isn't. And when you've got this obvious age gap where Napoleon is so much older than, or rather Joaquin Phoenix is so much older than Vanessa Kirby, it doesn't kind of make sense why this old general would have such a lack of awareness of sex, basically. So this is the first time where I am seeing that age difference, and I'm starting to agree slightly that it doesn't quite work perfectly. But I do think Vanessa Kirby is playing an absolute blinder from what we're seeing of her as Josephine. She looked great.
I must warn you.
So what we've got here, this is the brig, the French brig Inconstant. It was built in, I believe, 1811. This is the ship that Napoleon escapes from Elba on. So what we're moving towards is sort of the Waterloo end of the story. It shows that a lot of effort has gone into telling that last phase, and we know that because the amount of Waterloo fight scenes that are coming out of this is really kind of indicative of that. So yeah, this is Inconstant. This is the brig that Napoleon escaped Elba from. So a lot of the scenes that we're seeing of Napoleon on a boat probably aren't him en route to exile on St. Helena. They are him en route back from Elba. Now, we still don't know how that scene with Wellington and Napoleon, supposedly on board HMS Bellerophon, but actually shot on board HMS Victory, is going to fit into this, because obviously it didn't happen. But this at least gives us more of a sense of how some of these images that we've seen over the last few months are starting to slot together.
I will not lead a second in command.
Again, arrogance. I will not lead a second in command. Now, Napoleon did have issues with his superiors on occasion, so I don't have an issue with this. This is a guy who turns down a posting to put down Risings in the Vendée because he sees it as beneath him. This is a guy who writes withering criticisms of his superiors, justified withering criticisms, it's important to say, when he's helping with the siege of Toulon. So again, there is that air of it, that part of his character that works really well, but I am concerned that it's a little bit too uneven overall.
I will win by fire. I am destined for greatness.
I know I said it in the breakdown of the coronation scene, but I love that gasp. The kind of Napoleon does something and the rest of the world looks on it and goes, what? Whoa, come on, that's not how we do things. I think there is going to be this strong sense of here is a guy who did things differently. And there were people who didn't like that. And perhaps that is the main kind of direction that they're going to go down. You know, here is a guy who acted differently, thought differently, and society had a problem with him doing that, and yet he did it anyway. Maybe that is where the hero element is going to come in this. But the monotone, the understatedness of the delivery that you're about to hear is something that I have, as I said, a bit of an issue with.
I found the crown of France in the gutter and placed it atop my own head.
You want to be great, but you are nothing without me. Say it.
See the power dynamic. I wonder if the person who's going to get praised over the course of this film is Vanessa Kirby. I wonder if she's going to end up getting awards for her portrayal throughout this film, because I think the Josephine portrayal feels truer. It feels more identifiable. It feels more dynamic than what we're getting from Napoleon. And I think a lot of people are going to struggle with this for one of two reasons. Either it's not ultra pro-Napoleon and people are going to turn up wanting a hero story. You can understand that. And I don't think they're going to get a hero story. I think they're going to get this dude is complex. He does some good stuff. He does some bad stuff. That's just historical accuracy, so we don't have an issue with that. But I think for the bulk of the fan base, I think you're going to be surprised at how this isn't. Look, Napoleon was great and he did all of this stuff. His 2 hours of battle scenes. I don't think that's what we're going to get. But also, I think you're going to find it hard to identify with Napoleon. You go to a film and you want to kind of be able to get behind the main character. And I think that is actually going to be quite hard.
I believe I speak for all of us. We will all sleep again without this vermin.
So two things there. That's the voice of Rupert Everett, who, from what we understand, is playing Wellington. Josh Provan was on a live stream that we did about the first trailer, about how this was a very sort of tea and biscuits Wellington, and that comes through again. You know, Napoleon being described as vermin, is really can't stand this Corsican chap who's coming and has crowned himself emperor for us. Terribly destabilizing. It really can't be tolerated. No, definitely not. No, I don't know if Wellington spoke like that, actually. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. But Wellington wasn't one for slinging insults. And I think it's a little bit too... It's very Hollywood. You know, there's a good guy and a bad guy, and the bad guys can't deal with this good guy who's coming in and doing things differently. And so that's why Europe goes to war. And there's a kernel of truth within that it's a very kind of Hollywood simplification. And I can understand why it's there. It's such a gross oversimplification. You know, people don't go to war against Napoleon because he's a Corsican upstart. People go to war with Napoleon because Napoleonic France has such a dominance and has extracted so much and is demanding so much that other nations are just hacked off by this, and they're sick of the demands and they're sick of the humiliation. So I get why they're doing it. It's not true, but this is where the historian in me just has to suck it up and enjoy the visual spectacle. What we've also got here is angry Napoleon. This looks a little bit like it might be on board Bellerophon, i.e. post defeat at Waterloo. We don't know, but we shall see. But Napoleon having a massive strop because things really aren't going his way. Again, there's a nice kind of kernel of truth in that. The kind of this guy as somebody who had elements of genius about him. He had some element. He wasn't. I don't like the term genius, but there are some things you can look at and go, "Wow, impressive." And that kind of unstable genius is a trope that I can kind of get behind in terms of trying to help people to make sense of this guy and what he did.
Whose country are we in?
These are all Wood's things, by the way.
Mine.
See, I love that. That's the first, actually, it's probably the first piece of delivery, no, the second piece of delivery where I've gone, yes, that's it. That is Napoleon. The tone of it. Whose country in? Mine. You know, kind of sit down, shut up. I am calling the shots. That's Napoleon. That right there is exactly Napoleon. And if we get 2 hours of that, I'm going to love this film. But I mean, look, you can see the reaction on my face. The fact that we're getting 2 hours of Napoleonic history across a big screen. Yes, it's not going to be history in the way that I know it and the way that you know it, but it's going to be a dramatization, a simplification, but a visual spectacle of Napoleonic history brought to the screen, brought to life. And if we get that version of Napoleon that Joachim's presenting right there, the arrogant Napoleon, the supremely self-confident Napoleon who knows how to call the shots and when to call the shots and has that way with words, then it's going to be great. So there you have it, folks. I don't know if we're going to get another trailer before Thanksgiving. Are you excited about this? Are you nervous? I really want to hear whether or not you're going to see it, because I hope you do go and see it. And this is perhaps the last point to wrap up with, because we've spent a long time kind of wishing we'd get something like this. And there are lots of people in other videos who've commented about, you know, I'd love to see Nelson done, or I'd love to see Wellington done. I get it. I'm with you. But this is an opportunity. If the public gets behind this film, then there's going to be a renewed interest in telling the story of this period, to keep digging, to keep pushing. If we all go on Red Tomato and go, this was stupid and pointless and I hated it and Ridley Scott's a moron and Joaquin Phoenix can't act, then firstly, people who hurt you, chill out. It is only a film. But also, people are going to look at those responses, and some of those people are people who make decisions about budgets for other films. If you want to see more about this period, take the good, politely critique the bad, and see the wood for the trees. It is a film. It's always going to be a film, and that always is going to mean that there are issues with the accuracy. But we've got 2 hours of big screen, big budget, Napoleonic War spectacular coming. And I, for one, am massively excited. Like I say, let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's going to wrap it up for today. I've been Zack White. This is the Napoleonic Wars TV channel. Take care of yourselves, my friends. Stay well, stay safe, and thank you for watching.